my good friends, this is Chaos Angel here, also known as Lord Omni, and I'm back at it again with another video discussion for you guys. Now, though it doesn't feel like it to many, it hasn't been long since the reveal of Final Fantasy's new expansion known as Endwalker and the various surprises it had in store for us. Much of what we got from the showcase in February was just an appetizer for what would be a bountiful feast come this month, as we will be given quite the info dump with Final Fantasy XIV's Digital Fan Fest. Many of the things that we are highly anticipating on coming from this event, the extended full version of the Endwalker opening, a broader info dump on the story, a reveal of the Alliance raid, and most importantly, the reveal of the new melee job in Essence. There's just so much to be hype about. It's hard not to be waiting in anticipation for this huge event to come faster, and we're only a few weeks away from it as well. And speaking of the melee job, as many of you saw from the title of this video, yes, I'll be going over my many hopes for what the melee job will be, even though we already know what it is at this point, and how it will be like when it is revealed and released in Endwalker.
But before we actually get into the thick of things, there's actually something that I have for you guys that I want you to check out real quick that's going to generate hype for the coming events soon. And that, my good friends, is within the community tab of my channel, where I have a couple of shirts that I had delivered to me not too long ago posted up for a poll. And in that poll, I would like for you guys to help me to decide on what shirt to wear for the first day of the Digital Fan Fest to generate hype for the upcoming reveal of the new melee job. With that in mind, after you finish the video here, go check the poll out and make sure that you vote on what you'd like to see me wear for the first day of the Fan Fest. Because I'm just gonna say right now, I'm most certainly gonna be repping this job 110%. But enough of all of the extra nonsense. It's about time that we go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of things and talk about this new melee job in Essence, and just go over some of my wants, my wishes, and my hopes for what this job is going to look like, feel like, and essentially play like. Let's get it.
Now, for many of those who follow or have seen some of my past videos, you'll probably remember my past video discussion talking about the new melee job and my speculations and predictions on it. Essentially what it could possibly end up being. I will say that I'm not exactly going to get into it again here, as we've already beaten that topic to oblivion at this point. And given from what we learned from the latest patch update of the MSQ, I'm sure we all know at this point what the job is likely going to be using, that being the oh so overly popular Scythe. I say oh so popular, but let's be real here, it's popular for a reason. Also, seriously, like from the hints given from the shirts that Yoshi P was wearing, to the blatant cock tease cutscene that was Xenos choosing his weapon at the end of the patch 5.5 MSQ, I can't help but scream from the blue balls I was left with their bullshit so far. It's gotten to the point that I feel numb when thinking about the moment that they'll finally reveal the job, honestly. I have no idea how I'm going to act when they finally showcase it during the Fan Fest. But enough of my rambling, it's time to actually talk about the job and what I am hoping for from it in the long run. Now, given from the numerous points I've made from my speculation video, I suspect the job to be something along the lines of Death Knight or Fell Knight. This is mostly stemming from the fact that it's a job Xenos is going to be representing in a way, with him picking up a weapon that's related to it. With this in mind, and what we can glean from the latest trailer, I must say that I may not be too far off, honestly. But my overall thoughts on that has pretty much changed, as I don't really care what the job is actually going to be named. what it's going to end up being called. I'm more so concerned of what the job will be like in the long run, what it is and what it's going to play, how the gameplay is going to be. Cause shit, it could be called Mystic Knight and somehow still reap the souls of the living or whatever at this point. Cause who in their right mind thought that Sage was gonna be having flipping Gundam funnels, flying around it and shooting lasers like a crazy madman? I mean, sure, some may have predicted Sage in some occasion, like for instance my friend during the keynote of the FanFest for Shadowbringers, which was interesting how that worked out. But I can definitely tell you that we most certainly did not predict on how it was going to turn out wholly. Now, did we? Anyway, bottom line is, the name matters not until the job is finally revealed. All that matters at this moment is the weapon and how the job, in essence, is going to be using said weapon. And what will its traits be? Those are the things I and the members of my Discord have been discussing on numerous occasions, here and there, so on and so forth. We might be going a little overboard with our theories, but we're having fun nonetheless. And you can also join along with us in the hype of Endwalker. We have cookies. Moving along, let's start with the aesthetic. The one thing I'm sure many are a bit concerned about due to the idea of what this scythe job could end up being, which is the usual trope attached to the scythes in terms of fantasy media. Darkness, 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 and more darkness. Yes, I'm sure some of you probably wouldn't want to have another job with a theme of darkness being tied to it, given essentially we already have one that's in the tank role. I am pretty sure that we already have enough edge as it is with that job, so of course many wouldn't want another one, even though this one is actually going to be a melee damage dealer, while the other one is a tank. But yes, I know your plights. I hear you loud and clearly. My thing is that I myself don't really care. Cause trust and believe I eat that shit up. I'm sorry, but not sorry. I'm honest to a fault. I am literally being honest to a fault here on the fact that seeing characters wielding a scythe while it's harnessing the power of darkness or some other form of like Reaper-like powers just appeases to me so much. Like, I just can't get enough of that shit, and I probably never will. I mean, that shit, I'm already looking for things I can use for glamour for this job that hasn't even been revealed yet due to the anticipation. So yes, that is the kind of aesthetic I'm looking for with this supposed scythe wielding job. Not only that, due to the last few seconds of the Death Until Dawn trailer, it dawned on me on what Zeno said at the end, where he will drink the Sea of Souls, and couple with the line from Fandaniel as he witnessed said weapon. I can very well say that another thing that will be nice to see is soul-like effects coming from your attacks to emphasize the whole Reaper aspect of the job. That would be really nice to see. It would be really epic, in my honest opinion. I'm actually freaking getting a little bit hyped thinking about it. Now, as far as the gear is concerned, I can't really say how it will end up going for the gear sharing between the new job and the Dragoon. I mean, considering the fact on how it has been turning out for the gear between Samurai and Monk, it's a little bit conflicting, to be perfectly honest, in many occasions when it comes to the gear designs. It's rare to even see like a gear set fit for both jobs aesthetically. But given how similar in some ways the scythe job and the Dragoon can be compared to weapon-wise, it might not be as far-fetched, and it might not be as much as an issue as I peg it to be. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just hoping to see more armored cloaks of sorts on the job for my Ellison brothers and sisters out there. Now that I think about it, it would also be kind of nice to see something similar to Ranjit's gear when he was transformed. I'd definitely like to see a variation of that for the job, or just universally used for any job for that matter. Please, Yoshi P, can we get on that? Like, can we get on that? Can it possibly be added on, like, the mod station, maybe? That would be nice. Dieable, please, preferably. But I digress. We talked about the look, and now what about the attacks? How will the job play? Well, it's not exactly as easy as many would think to come up with something like that out of the gate. Let me just tell you right now. There are already so many jobs in the game, it's kind of hard not to make something that doesn't end up being unoriginal. So in this case, I'm more so going to be placing my wants instead of speculating on what we will end up getting based off of what we universally have with all of the other melee jobs, while it's at the same time adding a little bit of a twist here and there. And what I would like for the melee job to be in essence as far as its identity, or like for instance its strengths, I don't know. I feel like I could probably see this job having a balance of speed and strength. And with that balance, they can also have a party-wide buff, as well as some abilities that augment its attacks or strengthens it, essentially. Similar to that of the Dragoon, maybe, but with some differences between the two of them. Now, I will admit to one thing though. I kinda wouldn't mind having another selfish DPS among the other 3 selfish DPS in the list, but considering how we already have literally 3 selfish DPS that are fulfilled within the 3 roles, melee, range, and casting, that's obviously not going to happen, but it would be very nice to see another one come in the woodworks. You never really know. Plus not to mention, it would be very nice to transition from my samurai to this scythe job while it's dealing so much damage. Right now, the selfish part of me is literally coming out at the moment, but I will take what I can get. But for the sake of literally appeasing this job to others who might not be as excited for a dark-wielding scythe job and who are probably more so going for the Hammer Bros or something, I will just stick with the whole balance aspect. However, I can actually see this going in either 2 ways. One, the job could probably end up being a job that is focused more so on speed, while it's not dealing as much damage, pretty much compared to like Ninja. But considering how it's going to be a strength job, that's probably not going to happen. So that's the reason why I can more so see this being a balance in the same vein as like the Dragoon. In one way, if I was to gauge this in a terms of strength, I think I would see it in this way. That's pretty much the lineup that I have in mind in the long run at the end of the day when Endwalker releases, because let's be honest here, Ninja is not supposed to be dealing more damage than Dragoon. Either way, I don't know. I feel like I'm gearing more towards the speed, but it's just like, I know for the fact that it's probably not going to be like that. The only reason why I think this way is because of the fact that I would very much like to see the scythe wielder be as nimble as the Dragoon, in my honest opinion. Doing flips and shit, like the whole wheeling thrust attack, and so on and so forth. But we can't think like that here. In some ways, the moves for the scythe job could end up being more exaggerated, more weighty. And in that vein, it can end up being a pretty high damage dealer, don't you think? Maybe. We don't know. We'll just have to see. All we can do is just wait for the verdict, the final verdict, to when they actually show us and explain to us what the job is going to be like in the long run. But now, the only question is the moves themselves. What are they going to be like? As I previously said, the whole hit effects with the souls being reaped from the enemy would be pretty cool to see. The job's gauge can be something like a soul gauge, similar to like the Dragoon's dragon gauge. The job can actually have something to where it can go through like stages, and in those stages the character's body would be covered with like a ghostly aura of sorts. As far as the attacks and the rotations are concerned, I would very much like to have a blend of complexity to the job, something similar to Dragoon in some ways, but I'm typically just looking for a job to where it's like it's simple to pick up, but as far as mastering is concerned, that will take some time in order to really get it down pack. But once you do get it down pack, you'll be rewarded with a lot of tricked out eye candy effects and so on and so forth that just make it such a hype ass job to play. And that's another thing that I want to delve upon, the effects. Many of the effects, like for its ultimate attack, would be something along the line of Dark Knight combined with Summoner, wherein many of the attacks, I would like to see something similar to many of the games that I've played previously, like Darksiders or Soul Worker. Think of it like this, where the Scythe Wielder will have an attack or multiple attacks where it summons a spectral reaper of sorts that attacks at the same time along with you. That's the whole augmented to strengthen their attacks or something of that nature. That could definitely be nice and very cool to see, in my honest opinion. It would pretty much be in a similar vein to that of Death's crit attacks from Darksiders 2, or it could be in something like the Soul Worker character Lily, where she would summon a spectral reaper or a spectral ghoul or something of that nature that does scythe attacks along with her attacks as well. Definitely not in a similar vein to like Dark Knight or Machinist in that regard. Most certainly not. So yeah, just think of it as a way where, just like with Summoner, as you can remember with Dreadworm Trance, you're essentially just summoning like some kind of spectral reaper in order to pretty much link attacks with or something of that nature. Now, as far as projectiles, I can actually see this character doing either two things. They could either throw the weapon in a similar vein to the Dragoon. However, the way on how they will be throwing the weapon is that the weapon will be thrown in a spinning motion. It can be that, or they can either create a dark energy slash similar to like Samurai's NP, and pretty much just slash from far away. Continuing on to AoEs, this is something where I feel like the Scythe job will most certainly shine when it comes to its effects. Like, I can see this going as far as like Dark Knight levels of effects, but with the whole soul thing going into full play here, where the Scythe job could spin their weapon above their heads with some shining effects of souls just literally circling around them and slashing effects going around them and so on and so forth. That, or they can spin themselves while they're carrying the weapon, and in that vein, they will have slashing effects going around them in a circular motion. Similar to something like Samurai's Hisasu Kyoiten, pretty much. Another idea, like stated before, can be something similar to Dark Knight's Stalwart Soul. Honestly, really, I can see it pretty vividly, but they could probably change it up a little bit. Honestly, there's just so many possibilities. It's really just endless. But there's only so much that they could probably do for this job, wherein they'll try to stick with a core theme for its idea, and I, for one, hope that it has everything to do with what has been pointed out so far, which is essentially the whole soul thing. The whole souls to deal damage upon its enemies would be a very cool thing to witness inside of a Final Fantasy game. Well, I mean, it's already been done before, technically speaking, but you get what I mean. It may or may not be exactly the thing to differentiate this job with that of Dark Knight, but it's literally the only thing I have in mind that would essentially work for this job that I would like to see more than anything else. So that's the reason why I feel like if this was to happen, I would be satisfied. I would be thoroughly satisfied. And there you have it, my friends. Though it wasn't exactly as structured as I'd like it to be, those are some of the things in my head that came to mind when it comes to the Scythe job that I always wanted. And with the possibility of that day coming true, I can't tell you just how much I'm excited to see it in action. The Scythe is literally my most favorite weapon of all weapons in the fantasy genre. Not even katanas can beat the sheer badassery that is wielding a fucking scythe. And the thought of my boy Ezekiel wielding such a weapon, among other things, just makes my mind explode with how amazing it's going to be to see him in this job. Like, just thinking about right now, I just can't help but not follow this damn script that I wrote here. So far, I've had a great number of things given to me in each expansion since playing Final Fantasy XIV. I noted this before. First, there was freaking Dark Knight, then there was fucking Samurai, and even Gunbreaker, which was one thing that I never expected to ever happen, which was literally getting the Gunblade as a job. And yet, here we are. We not only got that, but you're also going to be giving me a freaking sick and suave looking healer, and at the same time, a job that is likely going to be of my favorite fantasy weapon of all time. Like, guys, I don't even know if my heart could take any more gifts like this at this point. It's just too much. Ezekiel's gonna be having quite the fucking title, I'm telling you. Ezekiel, the Dark Mage Sage of the Dragoon Scythe. Yes, that is now one of Ezekiel's titles out of the long-running titles that he pretty much has. Kinda wanna actually see that in the game now. Also, Dragoon Scythe. It's kinda catchy, don't you think? Anyway, with that, that's all I have for you guys for now. We're only a few weeks, if not a week away now, depending on when this video gets uploaded. Now, all I have for you is a question. Are you guys hype and excited for what's to come? What are your thoughts on my take of the job? And what would you like your iteration of the Scythe job to be? Or do you think it's going to be a completely different weapon entirely? Tell me your thoughts down in the comments, or join us in my Discord for conversations on many topics about Final Fantasy, Nier, Tales of series, any and all, or just game in general. But other than that, guys, I'm going to leave you to it with that. I hope you enjoyed this video discussion. There's many more to come. And with that, you have a very nice day, nice night, nice morning, nice afternoon, all of that good nonsense. And I shall catch you next time. Peace out.